Our friends, welcome to the channel. Bob here. Welcome to a video talking about the Forever Winter. This is a follow-up to the stream that I did yesterday, and I thought I would just give some feedback on the game. Over the last day or so, I've been looking at some of the discourse around it. It's got like mixed reviews on Steam, which is kind of surprising and maybe not surprising, but we'll get into that. I think the first thing to say about the game is that it's in early access. Now, I know many of us are fed up with early access and what it means. Particularly when it comes to monetization and the quality of the product, whatever it may be. But, you know, like it or lump it, early access really is a thing. And it's a thing where the game is released, generally, I think, because maybe in some cases developers need money to continue funding for development. Yeah, and the game is generally not finished. I think in some cases, early access is often used as an excuse for the game to never be finished, which I don't think is a particularly good thing. But in this case, it seems as though the devs didn't want to release the game. They weren't happy with the state that the game is in, but the community really, really wanted to play it, so they released it, and that's where we are. And then you get to a situation where the developers maybe think to themselves, maybe we shouldn't have released it because it's only got mixed reviews on Steam or whatever. You know, in this situation, maybe giving the community what they want is not the best idea. But I'm going to be critical of some of the game, but not critical in the sense that, oh my God, you know, this is a disaster and I'm never going to play this again. More in the sense that this is just how things are at the moment. But because it's early access, and I think particularly because the devs were not keen on releasing the game at this point, then I think that, you know, I think this is definitely a wait and see rather than, oh God, this is another early access mess, which I think is what some people are portraying it as from a critical point of view. You've got people on the other side as well, the toxic positivity thing, which is something that we've heard about recently. I'll talk about that at the end. Let's talk about the game first. So the game is, I would say, outside of Cyberpunk, is the most immersive game that I've played of any sort, probably for like 10, 15 years maybe, like going way back to the 2000s. Its depiction of a planet devastated by war and areas where there's still fighting going on and battles occurring. Like whenever you go into a zone, there's always combat going on. Some of the combat is large scale, involving tanks and massive mechs and helicopters and whatever it may be. And the depiction of a basically a desolated planet where there is still conflict going on is second to none. The atmosphere of the game, the immersion, the volumetrics, the battles going on around you. It really, really is a sight to behold. Some of the level design as well is exquisite. And there are lots of different levels with different environments as well. So when I say levels, this is like an extraction stealth shooter game. So if you're familiar with those, you go into an area or a zone and you need to extract. And before you extract, you try to get as much loot as you can or whatever it may be. This game revolves around water. So you need water supply for your base, which is called the innards. Some people don't like the way that's currently being, the gameplay mechanic of that. So the water ticks down in real time, like 24 hours a day. So if you've got 7 days, that's 7 real days. And when you're offline, or when you're not playing the game, it's still ticking down. I don't mind it actually, because extracting can be quite difficult, particularly if you're playing on your own. But there are some videos I've seen already online of people with guides on how to get water quickly and stuff. So I don't think it's going to be much of an issue. But I guess it does mean that you do need to invest some time into the game regularly to keep up with that mechanic. But then I guess if you're buying the game, then I suppose why wouldn't you? You know, it's an online service type extraction game. People play these games for thousands of hours, and I guess that's what the expectation is here, for you to consistently play the game. So I don't have a problem with that too much. But the experience of being dropped into a zone and sneaking around it, trying to extract, soaking up the atmosphere of the zone, it's just phenomenal. There are quite a lot of them as well. I think there are 6 or 7 available, and it seems as though there are another 6 or 7 that are not currently not unlocked. I'm not sure. Some things you need faction for, so maybe you need to increase the faction to actually open those zones, or maybe they're just not finished yet. There's one zone that you can access, and it does say it's unfinished at the moment, so that's fine. But each environment is very, very different from the last. The one particularly that stood out was it's almost like a cyberpunky cityscape, you know, like of the type that you might see in a film, you know, like Akira or whatever it may be. But it's actually like a ruined, completely ruined, desolate city, and that was one that really stood out. It was amazing. So all the environments are quite different as well, which is really, really cool. And as you creep around, and there's war going on, there's conflicts, there's factions that are fighting. if the NPC factions meet, they'll start fighting, etc. Some of these battles, as I said, can be quite big, like massive mechs, and massive giant humanoid type characters in body armor. Look a bit kind of like what's the manga? I can't remember what it's called. Attack on Titan type stuff. So yeah, and the vibe of the game also is kind of like a bit Terminator, a bit 40k, a bit Giga-ish. Like some of the statues and stuff I've seen kind of remind me of Alien, a bit like HR Giga's kind of design. So it's a mishmash of all those kind of things, but it's an extraction stealth shooter game. But as I said, like from an immersion point of view, moving around at these battlefields, which is essentially what they are, it's been an amazing experience, and the actual level design is fantastic. You get a massive scope of how big the area is. And some of the art design, well, all of the art design is fantastic, from the characters to the environments. Music is great, sound effects are great. It's great running along, and these bullets you can hear bullets just whipping past your head. And these might be stray bullets from a fight. Someone's not actually firing at you. These are just stray bullets from the actual combat. It's pretty amazing from an immersive experience. If you enjoy exploring environments and stealthing around, that's where I've had the most fun at the moment. And even I've been playing it now for like 20 hours or so. There's still loads of each level that I haven't visited yet. So I keep going on exploration runs, which is quite fun. The game also has like a base building type thing. It's got a character development type system, so there's some kind of like RPG elements. You get quests as well to do various things, like it might be going to this particular area and find this particular item or whatever it may be. There's a faction system as well, so you can increase faction with the combatants, like some of the armies as well. I'm not sure if that means that they don't attack you as much. I'm not sure, but I haven't really got into that too much, but that's interesting as well. I'm not sure how that affects your experience on the battlefield, but we'll wait and see. So from a design point of view and from an immersion point of view, it's fantastic. It's absolutely amazing. The issue where it falls down at the moment, and this is really probably maybe the element where the developers weren't particularly keen on releasing the game, and that is the AI. So in a game this is an extraction kind of stealth game primarily with shooting, and I've been playing it in the right way, as some people have been telling other people that they're not, and trying to stealth around and basically avoiding combat as much as possible. And you definitely have more success doing that. You know, attracting combat can be a real issue, and you can die very quickly, as you'll see on my stream. But the issue that the game has got, and that is the AI. So in a game where I've been playing stealth games for a long time, going back before, Metal Gear Solid, when they became popular. And in a stealth game, the AI needs to have certain rules. There needs to be certain parameters that it works within, so you can see how it works, and you can learn what you can do and what you can't do, essentially. And this game doesn't have any AI logic particularly at the moment, and so it's very, very difficult to do that. I've seen some people talking about the community for these games. I think the Dark Souls community is very similar. I've seen some people gaslighting, trying to tell other people that they're playing a game in the wrong way, or this is how it's supposed to be, but it's clearly not. If you look at the video that I'm doing at the moment, there's a couple of elements where I've kind of highlighted the camera on what AI are doing, and the AI is very basic at the moment. It jutters around. It's very random as to where it goes. I think what's happening at the moment is, if you get a patrol of soldiers, for example, there's a lead soldier, and all the other soldiers are basically tagged on to him, so they follow that one. Because what you'll notice is that they all walk along in this weird line, but then if the leader turns a corner, they'll all suddenly like spaz out a bit, as though they're not quite sure what to do, and then they'll all kind of eventually they'll all kind of file in again behind the leader. They also just seem to randomly go anywhere. There's no real logic to the patrols or whatever it may be. You'll get things like helicopters and flying vehicles flying into or flying through buildings. Tanks will just roll up to a building and ram into it and then just get stuck there. Mechs get stuck on each other. Mobs will get stuck on whatever. Basically, I've seen groups of patrols. Like the leader will get stuck on a point, and then all the other mobs just mill around him, like jerk around him and slide around him and stuff, because they're trying to get where he is, but they can't, I guess, because of some collision detection, and so they just kind of so the AI is clearly not working. That's fine. It's not a crime to say that. As I said, the developers said that they weren't happy releasing the game particularly, but there was enough cry for it to be released, so they've done it. So they realise that the game is not ready yet, not finished, and the AI is definitely an area where it doesn't work, where it still needs quite a lot of work. And the problem with the stealth point of view is, as I said, you need to know the rules of the stealth, the rules of the AI, and it's almost impossible to work it out. Some people, I had someone leave a comment on my stream saying, "Oh, well, this is how it's supposed to be," etc., etc. It's clearly not supposed to be like this, and you can just 5 minutes in the game. Anyone who's played games for any length of time, particularly like a stealth game where AI is important, can tell that the AI is currently just a placeholder, and it will change a lot. As I said, that's fine because the developers realise that. The issue is the kind of gatekeepery player base who. Anyone who's saying anything negative about the game, they're trying to make it sound like they're either not playing the game correctly or it's how it's supposed to be. I'm 100% positive that there isn't a dev comment that says, "Yeah, this is how our AI is supposed to be, and this is how it's going to be for release." If you can find that, leave it in the comments. But I'm pretty sure that how it is at the moment is not how it's supposed to be. It's very basic, and it just feels like a placeholder. Just for now, and I think and it's fine saying that the game's not ready, and that's fine. But there are some players who, within the extraction community, who just don't want any. As I said, it's toxic positivity. They don't want any pushback. They don't want They don't want these games to have any pushback in any way, and they gaslight and try to make it seem like it's your fault. Even when the developers are coming out and saying the game's not ready yet, they still try to say that this is how it's meant to be when it's clearly not. But yeah, and it is an important thing in a game where the primary mechanic when you're in the world is to hide and sneak around and get from A to B without being noticed if you can. The AI is the most important part of that game. Because, as I said, it needs to have rules so you can learn them, and it doesn't really have them at the moment. I've seen some people say, "Oh, well, if you look at a patrol, it does patrol." Well, yeah, it does, but in very basic terms. There's also a problem with the detection system. I've seen some people try to make excuses for the detection system as well, but that's not really working as intended at the moment. I'm pretty sure it's completely random most of the time. I've had mobs run up to me and stand and looking at me, and then run off again. And I've purposely stayed in the same location. And when that patrol comes back again, it will stop and look at me, then it will start shooting. Things fly over your head, they don't attack you. It will come back, it will suddenly attack you. There's no rhyme or reason to it, as I said. There needs to be going forward, there needs to be more feedback to the player as to if someone thinks that they've noticed something, or maybe they've actually seen you, or whatever it may be. You get a bit of it, like you get this icon come up, it's like a question mark, but sometimes it just doesn't come up at all. It just doesn't work. It's not working as intended, is what I'm trying to say. But I'm sure these things will be changed and updated in the future. I just wish that some of the games community, even though the developers themselves have said that it's not ready, will try to kind of kid you into believing that this is how it's supposed to be, and it's just your fault or it's your ability with the game. But that aside, when that's all working, I think it could be a magical game. I mean, during the stream yesterday, there was one run that I did, and it was the most kind of like tense but also exhilarating experience that I've had. And when I extracted, it was like, wow, that is exactly how the game is meant to be played. Or that is exactly what I want from the game. But within that level, particularly, I kind of mostly avoided AI, so I didn't have to interact with it particularly. And that's kind of where it worked really, really well. The other thing as well, it's difficult. The other thing as well is that how do you depict? So you're just some old dude or whatever. You know, you're just some pleb essentially who's going out into the zone trying to get water for their camp to survive essentially. So how do you, from a development point of view, it's difficult. How do you depict that when the player is in the world? Because to me personally, I think to myself, well, if I'm just some pleb and I'm moving past some soldiers, they wouldn't necessarily just attack you. And sometimes they don't, and sometimes they do. That's where it doesn't really work. It's a bit confusing. Maybe if the faction system comes online a bit more, and maybe if you increase the faction with a certain group of soldiers, then they just ignore you. But it's difficult. You know, how do you create tension in a game where logically you think, well, why the? I mean, I had one run where a mech, I didn't shoot at it. I didn't even run near it particularly, but for whatever reason it noticed me. A mech left a battle with other mechs and tanks and stuff to chase me and hunt me down and kill me. That doesn't make any sense, irrespective of whether I'm carrying a machine gun or a bazooka. You know, that made no logical sense whatsoever, and it kind of really broke the immersion. So that's a difficult thing. How do you create tension around a situation where you're not a soldier and you're not a hero, you're just some normal dude, and how the soldiers interact with you? I kind of feel that in general they would ignore you, you know, unless they really, really thought that you were a big threat. But then how do you create tension in the player? What they do have in the game are like mechanical mobs and like Terminator type mobs. So maybe they could be the mobs that are more aggressive if they see you because they're just programmed to do that. I guess potentially maybe that's the way of doing it. But I would like to see, in a game that's asking you to stealth, I would like to, obviously you want tension, so you want to avoid the mobs. But if I come across a group of soldiers and they kind of see me a bit, or they see me, but they can see that I'm just a dude on my own, I'd like there to be some AI where they say, oh, well, you know, this guy's just a scav, we don't need to worry about them, or whatever. Or maybe, as I said, maybe it's a faction thing. Maybe in the future the faction thing will be tuned so that you increase your faction with a group, and yeah, they're less likely to attack you. But that's also where it's not working at the moment with regards to how they detect you and why they attack you or why they don't attack you. There are instances where I do kind of feel that it works, but more often than not, it doesn't. So it's difficult to learn the rules of engagement, as it were, as a normal dude. You know, I mean, like you come across like 12 soldiers and there's just you with your backpack and they just blast you. Now, maybe they're just bastards. I don't know. But it doesn't really make any logical sense, even from a gamey perspective. I would like it to be a bit more detailed, and I would like the AI to be a bit more nuanced in that regard. But that's it. Yeah, that's it, basically. I mean, I guess at the moment, I'm happy with buying the game, and I'm going to go back and play it right now after I've finished this video. Because there's enough there for me to keep me going until they implement the systems how they want them to be. But yeah, it really is the most immersive experience I've had for a long, long time in a game. And you really get a sense of being in the middle of some Terminator-esque kind of battle, you know, battlefield. And the good thing as well, as I said, is that all of the environments so far are quite unique. And the level design is really, really good. And yeah, I'm loving it. I am loving it, but under the proviso that obviously I'm aware that there's still a lot of work to be done. I guess the advice I've got for anyone who's looking at the game is don't take any notice of the really positive or the really negative stuff. I guess it's a balance. You know, if you're happy to buy the game and go out into the world and explore and enjoy the environments and get immersed, but but with the understanding that there's still quite a lot to work on, then I think you'll enjoy it. But it's money. You've got to pay money for a game that's unfinished. You know, people are not. It's not really that kind of thing. I think it's becoming less and less popular. And early access has got a bit of a has got a bad reputation now. But anyway, I'm really excited for when the developers think the game is finished. That's going to be pretty amazing. Because as I said, like there was one particular run that I had that was just a phenomenal experience, and if they can replicate that the majority of the time, it'll be amazing. Anyway, thanks for listening, watching, and I'll speak to you again soon.